And hello, everybody. Welcome to a special Narativ Live. We're doing it extra early today because there is a lot of big news that we want to share with you. And I'm joined today by Christopher Armitage, who is a Substacker amongst many other things. He's also a former military police, a successful author, and he's doing something really remarkable in taking action against the Chief Justice, which we'll get into today. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. How about yourself?
I am really good. It's a busy day, and they're all busy days, but this one is particularly busy. You know, I don't know about you, but yesterday I felt the country bristle in a way that I've not felt them bristle before with the decision by the Supreme Court, the 6-3 ruling on the Voting Rights Act. You know, the ACLU's called this Jim Crow 2.0. Barack Obama has called this the court abandoning its democracy. And for those people who don't know, the case was Louisiana versus Callais. Basically, the Supreme Court threw out a majority Black district in Louisiana. And it also raised the bar for challenging biased maps going forward. In other words, you have to now prove that the map makers intended to discriminate, not just that the map had a discriminatory effect. So that's terrible news for democracy going into the next election, obviously. And it was all crafted, or at least the opinion was written by Chief Justice Roberts, who was also an enemy of the Voting Rights Act when it was first written, and then also in 2013, where it's the Shelby County decision to gut the act. So he's been at this, trying to gut the Voting Rights Act for 40 years. The thing is, as Chris Armitage has shared with us in recent days, this guy, Chief Justice Roberts, is not just anti the Voting Rights Act. He's also been allowing himself a lot of discretion in how he fills in his income and his family's income in his disclosures. And that's because of his wife, Jane Sullivan Roberts. And we'll explain to you who Jane Roberts is in a second. But all told, Chris here alleges, and others allege, that there's about $20 million in misdisclosed income that John Roberts has been providing America. So welcome, Chris. Who is Pam, and what does she do Jane, and what does she do that allows her to earn, what is it, like $10 million or $20 million in the last few years?
Well, the 10 million is the number confirmed. However, there were several years where the information wasn't being disclosed. And so we can only estimate how much it was during that time. And the way that we calculated that was just what was the average per year. Could be more, might be less. I feel like it's more. That's just my gut. But she's a recruiter. Yeah, she recruits for these companies. Yeah.
These aren't just companies; these are law firms, right? I mean, the scheme works a little bit like this. You know, he is the Supreme Court Chief Justice. She's a recruiter for the firms that often argue in front of the Supreme Court. These are well-known names: Wilmer Hale, Davis Polk. These are big-name firms. She places legal minds, in these firms and gets paid extraordinary commissions. I mean, I've never imagined that being a recruiter for a firm would net you anywhere near $1 million, never mind $10 million in commissions. But for her, it's been fairly lucrative.
Yeah, almost a third of the cases that John Roberts has weighed in on have had firms that his wife recruited for. Now, by the letter of the law, this isn't that some people say, okay, maybe I want to give the steel man the best case for the opposing argument here, because this is part of what I did with the disbarment that I submitted and I've encouraged other people to do. You approach it in good faith. Maybe she's just really good at her job, and can you be mad at his wife and blame him because she's very successful? But on its face, when this initially came out, it was via a whistleblower report half a decade ago. Congress held some hearings on it, and it just quietly disappeared. Whistleblowers who are themselves, this whistleblower was themselves an attorney and a clerk, brought it up because they knew that on its face, this is a direct violation of the statutes relating to recusal. With the DC bar, we're actually able to look, say, here's the statute. Here are cases where on its face, even federal judges did the exact same thing of misleading on paperwork for year after year, that disclosing what they were receiving or what their spouse was receiving, because that's their household income, and not recusing. And in those cases, this is how the DC bar responded. And so materially on the facts, over a 16-year period, John Roberts violated several statutes. And in those cases, that has resulted previously in people being disbarred.
And these statutes apply to the Chief Justice? Because, I mean, the SCOTUS likes to think of itself as its own universe. It doesn't seem to have any laws affecting them. So is it against the law for a Chief Justice to be doing this kind of thing?
So if he was licensed in the California bar, he would be under a different set of rules, because as soon as you become a federal judge under the California bar, they mostly stop applying all the rules to you, any enforcement. But the DC bar is not the California bar, and they explicitly hold all members to the same standard if you currently are licensed under the DC bar, even federal judges.
So if he's disbarred from the DC bar, he can lose his, he can't obviously be a chief justice, right? I mean,
he can. Okay. No, the only thing so the Constitution makes it clear, all you need to be on the Supreme Court is to be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. So really? Any of us. Oh yeah, that's all.
I'd rather have you on the Supreme Court than Chief Justice Roberts, it seems.
You could have a lottery and do better.
Yeah, right. So it's 16 years. His wife's making this millions and millions of dollars. And it's not just that he is not disclosing it. He's just, in some cases, failing to disclose it all. But he's also just misallocating it. When he does talk about it, he talks about it as a salary. Is that right?
Yeah, he referred to salary rather than commission. Well, why would he do that? Well, because commission is influenced by outcome in a way that salary isn't as directly. And again, you can, even in fraud cases, there are cases of judges going to jail for this exact misleading statement. And this isn't something I'm pulling out of nowhere. There are legal scholars, members of the federal bench, justices across the nation who study this for a living, who have said, and when the initial whistleblower complaint came out, said, this is on its face illegal. And, even in the original whistleblower complaints, a lot of people were really shocked with how it just fell under the radar. And so what I contributed to this conversation was just, I explored this story that had been under the radar for so many years and said, this needs to be, something should be done about it. And obviously with everything going on with the Supreme Court, it got a lot of attention. And also I'll mention one other thing that's related to this, that one of the violations is his wife, and his wife has an ownership level of some equity in one of the companies, one of the firms. And they appeared, it was a company that appeared before the Supreme Court and before her husband. And that equity stake was never disclosed for 3 years.
So she has an equity stake in a firm. They appear in front of her husband, and he never discloses that. That seems to me, and that's a real conflict of interest. That's not like even maybe a conflict of interest. That seems like a real conflict of interest. If you're basically earning money and you've got equity in the firm, that just doesn't make any sense to me. That feels like it's a real conflict. And this was just raised by this whistleblower and never heard from again.
Bloomberg did a story on this maybe 4 years ago about the equity stake thing. Mm-hmm. And then Justice Roberts filed a piece of paperwork disclosing it after the fact and called it an error in judgment. Now, in the disbarment that I filed, and I released the disbarment today on my Substack, The Existentialist Republic, where you can find it through a link at the bottom of the page. It takes you to the Buy Me a Coffee shop. It's $0.00. And then you can download the PDF. But in the disbarment that I filed, I specifically talk about how this error of, I'm just calling it an accident. Oh, I didn't disclose the equity stake, even though they appeared before the court.
I shouldn't have done that, which of course is bullshit. I mean, that can't be the case. Of course
and people have gone to jail for that with the same excuse. And even the George W. Bush's ethics lawyer, White House ethics lawyer, because that used to be a job.
Yeah.
They
have one still? I don't think so.
They themselves said, oh yeah, you're not allowed to do that. There's a quote from the George Bush. I mean, he said John Roberts fudged the paperwork in a way that is misleading. Way to soften lying on federal forms, which is a crime.
It seems ridiculous. It seems absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they obviously know the rules, and they're judges, they're justices. You'd expect them to follow the rules. But of course, they don't follow the rules because it's not the only one. We've had Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife. She went through a very similar sort of experience, getting money from conservative groups. And then, if I'm not mistaken, she was actually texting Mark Meadows to help him overturn the 2020 elections. I mean, talk about not being conflicted. And then Justice Thomas didn't recuse himself on those January the 6th cases, even though his wife was involved. And for years, she'd been taking money from conservative groups. And then Thomas himself was, of course, disclosed as taking money from billionaire Harlan Crow. That yachts and jets and real estate scandal. I mean, it's not just Justice Roberts. It's Thomas, and it's also Alito, who's got these billionaire friends who take him, God knows where, fishing trips to Alaska or all these other things that he's done. Is it unusual, or should we be surprised that it's three conservative justices who are, dipping their toe into some lucrative deals?
No, the Republican Party is a criminal organization primarily. What they sell is influence.
Mm.
And so, at least that's my take. But yeah, this is what they do. They've been working on it for a long time, very strategically since post World War II. A lot of very powerful people were upset that we didn't side with the Nazis. And so they've been steadily working at it. And this is where we got today, because taking over the courts is one of the final stages to an authoritarian capture. And as we saw in Hungary, that can be reversed. But in America, we're addressing this, and this case, applying for submitting a request for an investigation for disbarment to Justice Roberts. It's a first step, because people say, okay, you can be on the Supreme Court still even if you're disbarred. He will be in the history books if we can pull this up. And here's the thing: the DC bar has a choice, and I'm going to tell you exactly the gameplay they're going to try and roll. And I'm actually just today got word that the ACLU is picking up on the disbarment, and so there might be some more attention.
People are telling me there's no audio. Is everything working from the audio perspective of everybody? You guys can hear me, right? On the chat. I noticed you're not streaming on your site, Chris. We'll put this on afterwards, but let me just make sure you guys are okay. Yeah, you can hear it. Okay, they can hear us. Great. Okay, we're good.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, but we'll have to send it to your followers afterwards on a separate thing. But so back up there a little bit and tell me what happens, because people are beginning to take a closer look at the disbarment request or complaint you've put in. So tell us a little bit more about what's been going on.
So the request for investigation, disbarment complaint, which a lot of people are also submitting them. Attorneys across the country have joined in, which is really incredible. Retired judges submitting them. And that's a good feeling when you write something and then a retired judge says, I did this for 40 years and this all tracks. We are able to show this is the statute. This is the conduct that is verifiable in the public record, even in sworn congressional testimony. And this is how you've handled these complaints in the past. This is what the DC bar has done in the past. And what happens is you disbar these people. Sometimes they go to jail, but at least Chief Justice Roberts wants to be in the history books. And this is our chance to guarantee he is, because if we get him disbarred, he will forever live in infamy as the Chief Justice whose corruption got him disbarred. And it is a step towards further accountability.
Also, these chief justices are human beings. They don't live in isolation. They don't live outside of the world. They know what the public is thinking. And they have been feeling in recent months the disenchantment the American public has had with their recent decisions. And they certainly backed down in some ways in the recent past, except then suddenly yesterday they shot back up a little bit. But, it's the more attention we can put on to their own corruption, the more the more pressure they're going to feel, the more the public opinion around them is going to be hurt, because this is a very difficult court. I mean, they're not trusted by many people. So to have this kind of additional exposure just puts the spotlight on them in a way that is very welcome at a time when we're facing the end of our democracy. You said anybody can just apply for a disbarment investigation. How is that so? And what do people do? And what happens to get this guy disbarred? What do you have to do?
Any member of the public can look up the public portal for the DC Bar Association. As a member of the public, they say in their website, we all have a reason we need to trust them. They're a valuable source that is meant to vet and retain ethics standards, and that trust means that they have a relationship with the public. They are not above us, they are with us. And so any member of the public can find the DC Bar Association portal or their address and can submit a complaint. You can email it even, and you just say, they're undisclosed forms. It was covered in there. If you find the Existentialist Republic, John Roberts, $20 million, you'll find the article. I cite the actual laws. There's a little section in there you can copy paste if you want. Part of why, I released my complaint today. This is a week after the article came out. I wanted to wait because I don't want people just copy pasting what I wrote. I want you to put it in your words. You don't have to be an attorney. Just say the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is supposed to be held to the highest standard, not given the most leeway. This is an inversion of what a justice system is supposed to be. So
Yeah.
please, if you've disbarred people for this before, do it again.
It seems to me that if so many decisions over so many years have been adjudicated by this Chief Justice, and he's not been honest about the conflicts of interest and not recused himself from many of these cases, doesn't it put those cases in jeopardy? I mean, shouldn't they be vacated? Those decisions seem to me like they will always have an asterisk next to them because, hey, we don't know if the Chief Justice was being influenced by the fact that his wife got a commission from said law firm.
Well, this court has killed precedent. And what that means is, all right, cool, game on. Once we have, if we can regain the Supreme Court, if we can recapture our our democracy at the federal level, time to reverse every single one of those decisions, because we're not going to get to have the asterisk. We're not going to get to, but it really doesn't matter because the job of the Supreme Court is to be a fair arbiter of constitutional interpretation. And John Roberts and the other conservative justices have refused to do that. And there's a piece I published a few weeks ago that got some really good attention about something they call themselves originalists. Sophist, I have a working paper that I'll be submitting to law review soon related to this. So the sophists, are you familiar with the sophists in ancient Greece?
No.
The sophists were the sophists were famous for arguing for anything. They would be proud if they can win an argument when they were wrong, right? If they could convince the jury or the crowd that they were correct, even when they knew themselves to be false. They would even do things where they'd argue both sides of a point, and they were often trained to teach these skills to wealthy and powerful people so that they could deceive the public. And actually, when Socrates was killed, part of that trial was they accused him of being a sophist, and so he chose to throw the trial and lose on purpose so they could prove he wasn't a sophist, which is a little bit of a simplification. But the point is, the originalism of the Roberts Court is Calvin Ball. It's a lie. It is deceptively playing with rules and selectively applying standards in a way that didn't even exist 50 years ago. Originalism was made up as an excuse to deny rights that are constitutionally, any non-enumerated right, the Ninth Amendment, you have. If the Constitution doesn't explicitly grant you a right or remove it, then you have it. And they are doing everything they can to take away rights from women and people of color and the people they disagree with. They're destroying the Constitution. So that's sophist originalism. And then the real originalism is Madisonian. But there you go.
All right, that's really interesting. Actually, I had not known that. I want to look at this infograph, which I kindly got Google to pull together for us. Let me pull us back here a little bit so you can see. I don't know if you can see it. It's a bit small, but just to recap for everybody here, we're talking about the Chief Justice not declaring publicly that his wife earned this $20 million or supposedly over $20 million over this period of time because she was earning it as commissions. He was saying some of it is salary, but then some of it he wasn't declaring at all. Can you explain that again?
Well, I want to mention one detail too. In multiple cases, he would, and Clarence Thomas did this too. They get publicly caught doing this and then file an amended form. And they say, oops, I didn't understand the law. I made a mistake. And it just disappears because there's no enforcement mechanism. Thomas Paine, one of our founders, he said, any authority that is accountable to only themselves is accountable to no one and can never be trusted. There is no external enforcement mechanism outside of the political enforcement mechanism of Congress unless we exercise other ones. We must use criminal law. Now, what we have here is somebody purposefully misleading his wife that we know was thanks to a whistleblower. It took a whistleblower to announce this. Do you think that whistleblower who said, my boss, the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, is lying about how his wife is being paid? She gets paid more money. Their household income undeniably would be influenced. It's commission-based. That is a conflict.
$20 million is a lot of money. I would never expect a Chief Justice to be having that much money. I mean, if they're getting that kind of money, it's not. I mean, even if she's an amazing recruiter, even if she's like the best recruiter in the world, who earns $20 million to recruit lawyers? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the game here, but that's substantial.
No, what you're doing is applying common sense, and that is what it's ironic because Justice Kavanaugh loves to talk about common sense, but the fact is this is common sense. There is no world where this is appropriate, and the only way we can restore law and order is by actually restoring law and order, not by playing political gamesmanship. His wife has been paid millions of dollars over the last per year over the last 20 years. She makes their home makes more money if he rules in their favor. That is the appearance of corruption. It is against multiple federal laws. He committed crimes. And the only way to handle this is to actually enforce laws and address crimes.
Now, there's no way to prove that quid pro quo. We can't say, hey, he made this decision based on that. But the appearance is you're saying that the amount of money seems sort of a hand that it must be.
There's an important distinction there that is worth addressing. So there are certain types of criminal law and ethics violations where you need to prove intent. And then there are other ones where on their face, you can say this represents intent. Now, getting the same thing wrong for 16 years on federal forms, there are people who have gone to jail for that because the I didn't know excuse didn't work for them. And being the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court can't
do that in the Supreme Court. I know that. I'm sure he knows that. So you're talking about the appearance is enough. The appearance of conflict, the appearance of them being corrupt is enough of a reason to disbar them. What do you, when you talk about these commissions versus the salary, what is that? What is the distinction there again? Just explain to us. I know you did this a little bit earlier, but just why is there such a distinction?
Well, and this is part of what gives the appearance, especially of being purposefully misleading, is because we see a trend here in the information about how he chose to present it, and when he chose to present it in a way that was untrue, and you see that he did that in multiple instances. So why would you call it a salary versus a commission? Well, a commission is performance-based. What performance would be measured if you're sending people to a law firm that appears before your husband's court? Would it be winning cases?
Right. So if she's had a lawyer who won the case in front of him, or even if the firm won a case, she might get paid more per the next recruiter or whatever it is might be, something like that.
Sure might.
That is well, it makes sense. Absolutely, that's what that's the way the real world functions. There are various laws that you say that he has violated, but these don't necessarily apply to him being like he wouldn't lose his position would he as a Chief Justice?
There is an argument. Getting disbarred wouldn't remove him. It would put him in the history books. It would be an embarrassment. I do believe that these people, I don't think it'll necessarily change their rulings, but it will make them miserable. It will upset them. Putting someone in the history books as like officially having like a mark as being one of the most corrupt justices, being disbarred while being a sitting Chief Justice, destroy the legacy. Love it. Also, there could be criminal actions. This is a great start. It really is. Let's get the ball rolling. One of the metaphors I used yesterday was it's like the 4-minute mile. 1954, British medical student. You had scientists saying it's humanly impossible. He did it. The next summer, half a dozen people did it. Now high schoolers do it. You just got to show people.
I see you and I see Katie Fang out there doing incredible things as citizens. And yes, you're influencers. Yes, you've got big followings on Substack and whatever. But you're also, not just talking, you're doing it. And I love that. And I love the fact that you guys are taking action that other people can also take as they watch you doing it. Why not give a call to the DC bar or apply to have an investigation for Roberts in the DC bar? On the right-hand side, let's just quickly recap this part about how the conflict might work. So you've got the Chief Justice is adjudicating cases, he's listening to cases argued by lawyers that either may or may not have been recruited by his wife, but it doesn't really matter because the firms where she's getting paid to recruit lawyers are there. And we know that they've been there. There's Wilmer Hale has been there 18 cases, Hogan Lovells 8 cases. There's over 2 decades, 500 cases that have been in front of Roberts. But just those 18 and those 8, I mean, that's a lot of cases, significant Supreme Court cases that we don't know now. You have to have a question mark over them about whether the Chief Justice was influenced by his wife's recruitment and commissions or not. I mean, you don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, about a third of the cases that have appeared before him arguably fall under this standard. And just to bring it back to that steelman argument, what if his wife's just really successful? Why should he have to recuse himself from a third of the cases? Well, for people who've worked in fields where conflict of interest is very serious, like the dispensation of justice or ruling on the laws of the whole country, that is a situation where you might have to say one of us is going to have a different job.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course they do. Of course they do. That, I mean, you can't think of a more important role for anyone to have a clean ethics slate than as Chief Justice. I mean, if anybody should be, it's him. And the fact that there's even a shred of evidence to suggest otherwise, or even the appearance of something else, it's just not a non-starter. Chris, you're doing great work. Tell everyone more about you, because I just heard more about you before we got on the air. And it's a dizzying array of successful things that you've done. So tell everyone, who you are and also where they can follow you.
Sure. Right now, I'm on the Existentialist Republic on Substack. You just search the Existentialist Republic, you'll find it. Some of my stuff that I've done, I have a master's in Homeland Security, published research on human trafficking, emerging technology to combat human trafficking prior to the how dystopian that world's gotten. I'm currently submitting work to the Yale Law Review on the oppositional federalism taxonomy, which is a 5-tier model for looking at the different postures that states have had with the federal government throughout U.S. history in the contemporary era and historically, and using that to form a cohesive response framework to respond to federal authoritarian capture. So it's, one of the things I call it colloquially is anti-fascist federalism. And so, empowering people at the local level is the heart of what I do. And I hope that folks will come out and check out the Existentialist Republic. And we have another writer.
I've been reading it for a long time, and I didn't know enough about you, but now that I do know more about you, it's great. And hopefully we'll do that again, do this again. And I really appreciate you doing this effort. I think it's, it takes a lot of courage, but it doesn't need to be a thing that everyone can have that courage. Filing a disbarment like that is not out of the reach of any individual. So if you're sitting at home thinking, what can I do today to help save democracy? This is one of the things you can do today, as Chris has shown us through his excellent example. So really appreciate all that, and appreciate your service to the country, and appreciate your work. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That's Chris Armitage. Check out his very, very good Substack, the Existentialist Republic. Which one is it? Republic. I thought so. Sorry.
It's okay. I haven't been a Republican since I was 12 years old. Thankfully, I woke up.
You were a Republican when you were 12? Wow.
Up till the age of 12, yes.
Well, anyone who's that politically aware at 12 years old is okay. So, well, thank you for not being a Republican today, and we'll see you again soon. And you're at home, everyone, please follow Chris. It's a terrific Substack that he has, and it's definitely worth your time to support this effort to get this investigation into Chief Justice Roberts. I'll be back at 3:00 with the 5 Stack with Dean Blundell. We'll see you then. Bye-bye, everybody.